All right, so are you ready to dive deep into something kind of cool today?
Okay.
We're talking audio mixing.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you know that magical process that takes raw recordings and turns them into music that we all love.
Mm-hmm.
Our source for this deep dive is this passionate Italian audio engineer, and he's going to blow your mind with this idea. He compares audio mixing to conducting an orchestra.
Wow, that's pretty
I
interesting.
know, right?
Yeah.
So what's so fascinating about that is how it highlights the artistry involved in mixing.
Yeah, this engineer, he argues that just like a conductor shapes the sound of an orchestra by positioning the musicians, a mixing engineer, they shape the sound of a song by adjusting levels, panning, and adding effects.
Yeah, I've always thought of mixing as mostly technical, but thinking of it as conducting an orchestra kind of makes me see it in a whole new light.
Right.
It's not just about getting the levels right, it's about creating a sonic experience.
Exactly. And the engineer emphasizes that before digital audio workstations, that orchestral placement was the mixing. The conductor controlled the sound and the emotional impact simply by choosing where the violins sat compared to the cellos.
So it's like they were doing the same thing as a mixing engineer today, just with different tools.
Precisely, they were shaping the sound to evoke a specific emotional response. And that's a crucial point. A great mix isn't just technically proficient.
Right.
It has to be emotionally resonant.
Got it.
It should enhance the artist's intent, just like a conductor interprets a score, bringing their own understanding and emotion to the performance.
That makes me think about mixes I've heard that really gave me chills.
Yeah.
There's this one song, the way the vocals seem to float in space
Mm-hmm.
and the subtle use of reverb creating this haunting atmosphere.
Uh-huh.
It's like the music was telling a story and I was completely drawn into it.
Yeah, it's amazing how a skilled mixing engineer can create those kinds of immersive experiences.
Right.
And on the flip side, we've all probably encountered mixes that fall flat,
Yeah.
where the instruments sound muddled and there's no sense of space or depth. It's like listening to a technically perfect performance, but without any soul.
I know our engineer is a big fan of the digital audio workstation Reaper.
Yeah,
He calls it a powerhouse tool, even comparing it to a Swiss Army knife of audio software.
I like that analogy.
What is it about Reaper that makes it so special in his eyes?
Well, aside from its affordability, which is a big plus for aspiring engineers, Reaper stands out for its incredible flexibility and customization.
Okay.
He particularly loves its scripting capabilities, which allow him to automate complex tasks and create unique mixing techniques.
So it's not just about the basic features, it's about how Reaper allows him to go beyond the standard tools and really push the creative boundaries.
Right.
It's like having a blank canvas and a whole set of brushes to paint your sonic masterpiece.
Exactly. But he's also quick to point out that even with the most sophisticated tools, the listening environment is absolutely critical.
Right.
He uses a funny analogy to illustrate this. You wouldn't want your conductor standing in a closet, would you?
Okay, I get it. You need a good space to really hear the nuances of a mix. What does he recommend for an optimal listening environment?
He's a big advocate for the triangle setup, where your head forms one point of a triangle and your speakers are positioned at the other 2 points.
There you go.
This creates a sweet spot where the sound waves from both speakers converge perfectly, giving you the most accurate listening experience. And he even has this cool trick for finding that sweet spot using the panning control.
Wait, you can use panning to actually fine-tune your speaker placement?
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
It's actually quite simple. You take a track with a distinct stereo image, like a song with a strong vocal in the center and instruments panned to the sides.
Okay.
You start playing it and slowly adjust the pan control on your mixing board or DAW.
Interesting. So what am I listening for exactly?
You're listening for the moment when the sound feels perfectly centered, like it's coming from a phantom speaker right in front of you. That's your cue that you've hit the sweet spot in your triangle setup.
It's almost like calibrating your speakers to the room using your own ears.
Yeah.
I love that this combines technical know-how with intuition.
It really exemplifies how understanding sound principles enhances creativity, even with all our technology. Our ears are still the ultimate judges of a good mix.
This whole deep dive is opening my ears to the art behind the audio.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Our Italian engineer's passion is contagious.
He truly is a maestro of sound. What I find inspiring is his focus on the emotional impact of a well-crafted mix.
Yeah.
It's not just about making things sound good, it's about using sound to tell a story and evoke feeling.
So it's more than just technical proficiency, it's about conveying emotion,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Think about it. A well-mixed song can make you feel happy, sad, nostalgic, energized. It can even transport you to another place in time. That's the power a skilled mixer wields manipulating sound to evoke emotion.
It makes me want to revisit my favorite albums with fresh ears, paying attention to those subtle details that create the mood.
I encourage you to do just that.
Yeah.
Listen for the layering of instruments, the effects like reverb and delay, how the dynamics shift.
Yeah.
Notice how those elements contribute to the overall feel. It's a fascinating way to listen.
I bet I'd appreciate the mixing artistry so much more. It's like uncovering a hidden language that unlocks the emotional depth of the music.
Speaking of hidden languages, let's circle back to Reaper. Our source seems particularly fond of it. What is it about Reaper that he finds so special?
He describes it as having enormous potential, especially given how affordable it is. It's almost like the underdog of audio software punching way above its weight class.
You know, that's a compelling point, especially for aspiring audio engineers who might be daunted by the cost of some of the high-end DAWs out there. Reaper demonstrates that you don't need a fortune to create professional quality mixes.
He even emphasizes how user-friendly it is, saying that he uses Reaper for all the practical examples in his videos.
That's a great way to demystify the process for viewers who might be new to mixing. Using an accessible tool like Reaper makes the learning curve seem less steep and encourages more people to explore this field.
It's like he's saying, hey, you don't need a fancy studio or expensive software to start. All you need is a passion for sound and a willingness to learn.
That's a powerful message, for sure. It democratizes audio mixing, making it accessible to anyone with a computer and a creative spark. But while Reaper is a great tool, he also reminds us that the real magic happens when we consider the listener.
Oh, that's right. He mentioned something about the audience playing a role, didn't he?
He suggests that the audience plays a crucial role in shaping the final mix.
That's an interesting twist. How so?
He explains that while the mixer has a vision for the sound, the ultimate test is how the audience perceives the music.
Uh-huh.
It's not enough for a mix to sound good in the studio. It has to translate well to the diverse listening environments and preferences of the audience.
That makes a lot of sense. People listen to music on everything from tiny earbuds to massive sound systems.
Exactly, and a truly great mix will sound good across all those different setups. It's about creating a sonic experience that connects with people on an emotional level, regardless of how they're listening.
So it's almost as if the mixer is conducting an orchestra for an invisible audience out there in the world.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Ultimately, it's about creating a sound that resonates with the listener.
This deep dive has really opened my ears to the artistry and the science behind audio mixing. I'm starting to hear music in a whole new way.
It's a fascinating field, that's for sure. It blends creativity, technical skill, and a deep understanding of human perception.
So the next time we listen to music, we should think about the conductor behind the scenes, shaping the sound to evoke emotion and create an immersive experience.
Absolutely, and perhaps even more importantly, pay attention to how the music makes you feel. Does it move you? Does it tell a story? What might the mixer have done to achieve that effect?
Asking those questions adds a whole new layer of appreciation for the artistry of audio mixing.
It certainly does.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this part of our deep dive into the world of audio mixing.
Okay.
We hope you've enjoyed exploring this fascinating topic with us so far.
Yes, and we'll pick it up next time.
Awesome.
Okay, see ya.
Sounds goodbye.
He suggests that we think about a concert hall. You know, the acoustics of a concert hall can vary widely,
Right.
and a mix that sounds amazing in one venue might sound muddy or harsh in another.
I see. So the mixing engineer needs to consider the potential listening spaces.
Precisely, he encourages us to imagine the listener's experience.
Okay.
Are they listening on headphones in a quiet room, or are they blasting it on their car stereo?
I never thought about it like that.
It's a fascinating perspective, isn't it?
It really changes how I think about the whole mixing process.
The goal is to create a mix that translates well across different environments.
Got it. So it's not just about achieving a perfect sound in the studio.
It's about making sure that the music reaches the listener with the intended impact and clarity.
It's like the mixer is sending a sonic message out into the world.
And hoping that it connects with the audience regardless of their listening setup.
It's amazing how many layers there are to this.
It really is a blend of art, science, and empathy.
Now, our engineer, he highlights the importance of understanding the tools of the trade. And he's particularly enthusiastic about a specific digital audio workstation, or DAW,
Right.
called Reaper.
Yeah, he raves about its incredible potential, especially for beginners because it's so affordable.
It's interesting how he sees Reaper as this powerful tool that's accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. He emphasizes that you don't need a fortune to get started with mixing.
So it's like he's breaking down those financial barriers to entry.
Exactly. He believes that anyone with a passion for sound should have the opportunity to explore mixing.
And Reaper provides that entry point.
Precisely. And he doesn't just talk about it. He actually uses Reaper in all the practical examples in his videos,
Okay.
which is a great way to show people that it's a real-world tool capable of producing professional results.
So he's walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. He's demonstrating that you can achieve great things with Reaper.
Now, I'm curious, what are some of the specific features of Reaper that he gets excited about?
Well, he loves its flexibility and customization options.
Like what?
For example, he's a big fan of its routing capabilities. Yeah, which allow you to send audio signals wherever you want within the program.
Okay.
You can create complex signal chains, experiment with different effects, and really sculpt the sound in creative ways.
This is like having a virtual studio at your fingertips.
Precisely. And he's also impressed with Reaper's automation features.
Automation. How does that work?
You can automate almost any parameter over time.
Oh, I see.
Like gradually increasing the volume of a track or slowly introducing a reverb effect.
That sounds powerful.
It is. It gives you a lot of control over the dynamics and evolution of a mix. And he also highlights Reaper's extensive plugin support.
Plugins, right? So those are like little pieces of software that add specific effects or functions.
Exactly. And Reaper is compatible with a vast library of plugins, both free and commercial.
Okay, so you can really expand its capabilities based on your needs and budget.
Precisely. It's like having a toolbox that you can constantly add to.
This is making me want to try out Reaper myself.
You should. It's a fantastic DAW, and there are tons of resources available online to help you get started.
Now, while our engineer is clearly a tech enthusiast, he also stresses the importance of something that goes beyond the tools themselves.
Right. He emphasizes the role of the human ear.
Interesting. Tell me more about that.
He argues that while technology is essential,
Yeah.
our ears are still the ultimate judges of a good mix.
Okay, so it's not just about looking at the meters and waveforms.
It's about listening critically and using your ears to make informed decisions.
So how does he suggest we train our ears to become better mixers?
He recommends something called active listening.
Active listening. What does that mean?
It means listening with intention and focus.
Okay.
Instead of just passively hearing the music, you're actively analyzing it.
Got it. So, like, what am I listening for?
Pay attention to things like the balance between instruments, the clarity of the vocals, the stereo image, the use of effects.
And how do I know if I'm hearing things correctly?
That's where reference tracks come in.
Reference tracks.
Yeah, you choose a few professionally mixed songs that you really admire, and you use them as a benchmark for your own mixes.
So I'm comparing my mix to a professional one.
Exactly. Listen carefully to how the elements are balanced in the reference track, and try to achieve a similar level of quality in your own work.
That's a great tip. I'm going to try that.
You should. It's a really effective way to develop your ear and improve your mixing skills.
Now, speaking of mixing skills,
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some common mistakes that beginners often make?
One common mistake is focusing too much on individual tracks instead of the overall mix.
Okay.
It's easy to get caught up in making each instrument sound perfect in isolation,
Right.
but you need to step back and listen to how everything works together.
So it's about the big picture, not just the individual parts.
Exactly. Another common mistake is overusing effects.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely been guilty of that.
It's tempting to slap on a ton of reverb or delay,
Right.
but sometimes less is more.
So how do I know when I'm using too many effects?
If the effects are distracting from the music or muddying the sound,
Okay.
then it's probably time to dial them back.
And is there anything else that beginners should be aware of?
Yeah, proper gain staging is crucial.
Gain staging. What's that?
It's about making sure that the audio signals are at the right level throughout the entire signal chain,
Okay.
from the recording stage all the way to the master output.
And why is that important?
If the levels are too high, you can introduce distortion,
Right.
and if they're too low, you'll lose dynamic range.
Got it. So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Exactly.
This has been such an insightful deep dive into the world of audio mixing.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I feel like I have a much better understanding of the art and the science behind it.
It's been fun exploring this topic with you.
So to wrap things up, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think the biggest takeaway is that audio mixing is a skill that anyone can learn.
Okay.
It takes time, practice, and a willingness to experiment, but with the right tools and resources, you can create amazing sounding music.
And don't forget the importance of listening.
Right, active listening is essential for developing your ear and improving your mixes.
So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, keep listening, keep learning, and keep pushing those creative boundaries.
Absolutely.
That's all for this deep dive into the world of audio mixing. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.